I remember the first time I saw that piece of land. It wasn't much, just a forgotten patch of rocky hillside that everyone else had passed on, but to me, it felt like freedom. You could see the whole valley from up there, the river twisting like a silver ribbon, and the mountains burning gold at sunset. My wife Emily called it the kind of place where the world exhales. We saved for years to buy it, and when the papers were finally signed, I told her, "This is where we'll grow old." I didn't realize then that our dream view was about to start a war. It began with a letter heavy cream paper gold logo, the kind of thing meant to make you feel small. It was from the Ridgecrest Hills Homeowners Association. The words were polite, but the message wasn't. Your proposed structure will obstruct the community's established view corridor. I had to laugh. Our lot wasn't even part of Ridgecrest Hills. We were outside their jurisdiction by nearly a quarter mile. The county clerk himself confirmed it. But apparently, that didn't matter to one woman, Marlene Strickland, HOA president, self-appointed guardian of the skyline. She showed up 2 days later, rolling up the dirt road in a spotless white golf cart like some kind of suburban royalty. She had the look, visor pearls, a clipboard, and she smiled like she was doing me a favor. "You must be Mr. Lawson," she said. "We need to have a talk about your project." I was waist-deep in a trench covered in dust, shovel in hand. "Pretty sure my project's all approved," I said, pointing to the permit taped inside my truck window. She waved her manicured hand, as if batting away a fly. "County permits don't always understand community harmony." Then she handed me a binder thick enough to stop a bullet. "Our covenants," she said. "You should have read them before starting." I flipped through the first page rules about mailbox colors and lawn ornaments. I told her, "Ma'am, I don't even have a lawn." That smile dropped like a mask hitting the floor. "You'll be hearing from our lawyer," she hissed before speeding off. And she meant it. Within a week, the letters started. Cease and desist, unauthorized grading, violation of community aesthetic. My own lawyer, old school guy named Dawson, said they had no leg to stand on. "They're blowing smoke, Ben," he told me. "You're not under their authority." So I tossed the letters in a drawer and kept building. But I could feel it, that tension. The waves stopped when I drove through the neighborhood. Folks who used to chat now stared at the ground. Marlene was poisoning the well. The day things turned ugly was a Tuesday morning. I was up on the frame when a car pulled in, unmarked sedan blue windbreaker, clipboard in hand. "Benjamin Lawson," he called out. "State Compliance Office." He flashed a badge so quick I barely caught it. "You're in violation of a stop work order," he said, slapping a red tag on my front post. I climbed down, heart pounding. "A stop work, what I've got every permit in the book." He puffed his chest. "We've received a formal complaint. Fines up to $10,000 per day." Something about the way he said it, too rehearsed, too smug, set off every alarm in my head. I asked to see his ID again. His eyes darted. "Sir, interference with an officer." "You're no officer," I said, stepping closer. He turned pale and bolted for his car. Instinct took over. I grabbed the back of his jacket. It tore like paper, and his folder spilled across the dirt. Papers everywhere. My wife came running out from our trailer. "Ben, what are you doing, catching a liar?" I said. The guy peeled out tires, spitting gravel, leaving his junk behind. Emily picked up one of the papers, an email printout. The subject line read, "The Lawson Problem," and there, in black and white, was Marlene's name. "Make it look official," one of her board members had written. "Scare them off the ridge." My stomach dropped. This wasn't harassment anymore. It was a setup. We called the sheriff. A young deputy named Keller showed up, steady as stone. He took one look at the red tag and shook his head. "Fake." fonts wrong. No county seal. You did the right thing calling us. He bagged it as evidence and promised a report for impersonating a public official. Emily, meanwhile, was already photographing everything: the tag, the torn jacket, the tire tracks. Chain of custody, she said quietly. She was calm, almost surgical about it, while my hands were still shaking with anger. For a while, things went quiet. Too quiet. Until one night around 2 in the morning, Emily's phone pinged with a motion alert from the cameras we'd installed. She opened the live feed, and there they were, 2 figures sneaking along the property line. When she zoomed in, I nearly couldn't believe it. Gary and Todd, 2 HOA board members moving our survey stakes 5 feet inward. They were literally stealing our land. I was halfway out of bed, ready to storm down there, but Emily grabbed my arm. "No," she whispered. "Let them finish. Every inch they move is another crime." We sat in silence, watching them dig and hammer until they vanished into the night. She saved the footage in 3 places before she even exhaled. The next morning, I called Keller and told him we had new evidence. He just said, "Keep that video safe, Mr. Lawson. They're digging their own grave." Then came the day of the concrete pour. Big milestone. We had trucks lined up, rebar in place, ready to lay the foundation. But when the first mixer came up the road, it stopped dead at the entrance. A neat row of orange cones blocked the driveway, and behind them, like centuries of stupidity, stood Gary and Todd in matching HOA polos. "Morning, fellas," I said, walking up. "Gonna need you to move those." Gary crossed his arms. "The HOA Safety Committee has determined this road is unsuitable for heavy vehicles. You'll need to cancel your pour." I laughed out loud. "Gary, I've got you on camera trespassing last week. You sure you want to keep pushing this?" His smirk faltered, then came back uglier. "You're bluffing," he said. When I kicked one of the cones aside, he shoved me hard. Instinct kicked in. I shoved back. Then he swung. The punch caught me on the jaw and sent me reeling. The truck driver jumped out, big guy built like a linebacker. "That's assault," he roared. "I saw everything." Gary and Todd froze, faces white. "I'm calling the cops." They bolted, leaving the cones and their pride behind. The pour was ruined. The concrete hardened in the truck before the deputies arrived, but that didn't matter. We now had a witness and a police report for assault. That night, as I iced my jaw, I told Emily I was tired. Tired of fighting. Tired of waking up angry. She just looked at me and said, "Then let's stop fighting their way." She ordered a top-grade surveillance system with battery backup and cellular uplink. "If they want to play dirty," she said, "we'll play smart." Sure enough, a week later, our cameras went dark at midnight. They'd cut the power. I felt a spike of panic until Emily smiled. "Watch this," she said, hitting a key. The backup feed flickered on, showing Ted himself cutting the wires, grinning like an idiot at the very camera he thought he'd killed. "Smile for the felony," she murmured. We sent the footage straight to Deputy Keller. His reply came quick: "That's tampering with security equipment. They just leveled up their crimes." But the real bombshell came from an anonymous email titled simply "Proof." Inside were screenshots of the HOA's private chat. Marlene writing, "Legal threats aren't working. We need to escalate." Gary responding, "My cousin can pose as an inspector. Red tag, make it scary." Then the final message, the one that made my blood run cold, Marlene herself saying, "Do whatever it takes." That was her order, her signature, her downfall. Our lawyer nearly shouted when he saw it. "Ben, this is conspiracy, civil and criminal. You can sue them personally." But Emily had a different idea. "Let's not leak it. Let's win clean." So we hired an independent surveyor and GIS tech to produce a 3D model, proving our house didn't block anyone's view. When the report came in, it was flawless, legal lines, perfect setbacks, compliant sight lines clear. Their entire case was smoke. Marlene didn't fold. Instead, she sent us a buyout offer, offering to pay us what we'd spent on the land, plus a few thousand for our trouble. We mailed it back shredded into confetti. That's when the petty stuff started: eggs on the trailer notes on the windshield saying, "Thieves of the Sunset." I'd be lying if I said it didn't get to me. But one evening, watching the sun dip behind the hills, I had an idea. If they think we stole the view, I told Emily, let's give it back. The next weekend, we set up a projector at the end of our driveway, pointed a camera at the horizon, and streamed the sunset live on a big screen for everyone to see. We played soft music, handed out cocoa, and put up a sign that said, "Free sunset, all welcome." Neighbors came. Even the ones who'd avoided us smiled. Kids laughed. For a moment, it felt like a real community again. I saw Marlene's golf cart at the far end of the street. She sat there watching, her face twisted, as her neighbors enjoyed what she'd tried to hoard. Then she spun the cart around and disappeared. A week later, we were in court. Marlene's lawyer strutted in with a miniature model showing our massive house blocking her sacred view. The judge looked from the toy mountain to the certified survey report our lawyer presented and burst out laughing. "Counselor," he said between chuckles, "are you seriously submitting this dollhouse as evidence?" The laughter echoed through the room, even from the bailiff. Then his tone changed, cold and sharp. "This court finds your lawsuit frivolous, malicious, and in direct violation of state law. Case dismissed with prejudice." He ordered the HOA to pay for every dollar we'd spent survey security system, even the ruined concrete. And then he looked right at Marlene. "Your little kingdom ends at Mr. Lawson's property line." She was silent. For the first time, she looked small. Within weeks, the district attorney charged her Gary and Ted. They all pled out fines, probation, banned from any HOA board for life. The HOA itself collapsed. A new president, Nate, from down the hill, mailed every resident an apology letter and a check. We finished our house that spring. The first night, we ate pizza on the bare floor, watching the sky turn orange over the valley. It felt less like victory and more like peace. That summer, we hosted a block party called Sunset for Everyone. No speeches, no drama, just laughter, neighbors, and light. Someone said, "Glad you stayed." I smiled. Me too. Now, when the sun drops behind those hills, I think about how close we came to giving up, how power and pride almost stole what we'd built with our own hands. But we learned something out there on that ridge, that the sky doesn't belong to anyone. It's for everyone. So tell me, if it were you, would you have fought back or walked away? Drop your thoughts in the comments. I want to know what you'd have done when the HOA tried to take your sunset.